When we talk about readability, it's not about the individual font, it's more holistic. So looking at the document as a whole or chunks of that document. Alright, so we have a basic document here, and well, it's not terrible, but it definitely isn't great. So let's talk about readability. So readability is how easy the document is to read, or we can also talk about it in chunks, like how hard or easy is this specific area to read. With our current media, it's hard enough to get people to read stuff anyways, because people are used to pictures and videos and all these different things. So if you can actually get them to read your document, you definitely don't want them to stop reading it because it's hard to read. That does include like bad font choices, but it's more than just a bad font. And I don't mean bad font as in like this font is terrible and shouldn't exist. I mean like it's a bad font for that specific thing. So like a font like this, it does have purposes, but you wouldn't want a huge document filled with this because it's not going to be easy to read. But it's more than just that too. So the way that we have this document right now, we have this really big column. And as you try to read it, let's actually put some real text so you can read it. And now I can drop this in here. And let's hide our frame edges. There we go. So even though you can read this now, you don't necessarily want to, and there's a couple issues with that. So we have this all in one big giant column, and so as your eye reads across, you're then having to jump all the way back over here. And that's quite a jump, and that can make it difficult for some people to read. To make it easier to read, we'd want to shrink this down, so that way your eye has less space to jump from the end of this line to the start of the next. And that's one of the big reasons why a lot of documents do use columns, is that it makes it easier and faster for someone to read. Now we'll make this a little bit thinner, and we could also instead add the next bit. So I have this on my cursor right now. I want to make sure that I'm careful, because if I click right here, this is a text box too, and if I click it, it's going to link these two together, and now I've lost what I had there. So make sure that I'm not clicking that text box. So maybe here. Oh, that text box is bigger than I thought. Maybe there. There we go. And now I can shrink this down to fit here. Alright, another issue here that I just accidentally caused. These lines are off. And this lack of consistency, where the bottom of this line is there, but the bottom of the other line is higher above, is also going to cause some issues for people. And so you want to be consistent. So you'd want to make sure that the base of your lines are the same. Furthermore, you also want to make sure that things line up. So I've got a paragraph there, but I could instead move this up and have another paragraph here. And I could shrink that down and move this up because I've got another paragraph there. And I can make another one. And so now I've got that little paragraph there. And so let's make this a little bit bigger. And there we go. So now I've got paragraph, 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 paragraph. Now this has a lot of issues too, because things aren't lining up. There is not really any order. This is intended all the way to here, whereas this one is right flush with the margin. This one's in between the two. So there's no consistency, and that's going to make it hard for people to read too. And it's also going to give them a hard idea of like, where is the continuity? Do I read this and then this and then this? Or is this more important? Is this separate? Do I read here and then come down here? That lack of consistency makes it harder for someone to read, and so they're more likely to just say, forget it, why am I reading this? In addition, you of course also want to avoid things like changing font randomly on a person or changing the sizes, because once again that lack of consistency is going to make it confusing. So you want to have your things lined up. So if you really want these to be different text boxes for some reason, pull out a ruler to make sure that you can align these properly. There we go. Less bad. Now the gap between these is still different too, and that's a little bit of an issue too, because it feels like this might be separate from these. These feel together because they're closer together. So once again, consistency. It's not just the text, it's also the white space. because we associate things that are close together being together. We associate this image with this text because they're close together. We associate these together because they're close together. This larger gap might create separation for people and make it harder for them to know where to follow.